So a nation still reeling from and dealing with the effects of heavy rain and flooding that he acknowledged in large part was caused by the shortcomings of government and government services. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. on Monday, July 28, promised a review, an audit, and to hold accountable those who benefited from corruption in flood control projects. It's this part of his State of the Nation address, his fourth as president, that earned the most applause from a gallery that was composed mostly of his allies, including personalities whose constituencies and areas are still affected by the flooding. Mahiya naman kayo, sabi ni President Marcos. Hi, my name is Bea Cupin. You are watching Rappler, and I am in Batasang Pabansa, where a few minutes ago, Marcos delivered his fourth State of the Nation address right at the midterm mark of his administration. Now, just for context, ito sa usapan ng flood control project. Just the day prior, last Sunday, in fact, Marcos inspected the North Navotas pumping station navigational gate, which is still broken, a year after he specifically ordered it fixed and repaired. In a SONA that sounded more like a technical report than an address to the nation, this was where Marcos turned the most emotional in a speech that ran for over an hour. Marcos promised, again, a review and an audit, and notably also he promised to make the results of that review and that audit transparent and available to the public. Marcos also made a declaration, or a warning, if you will, to the Congress na if the budget that they passed for 2026 does not align with the goal of administration, he would not hesitate to return it, even if it means working with a reenacted budget or the 2025 budget again in 2026. This is Marcos perhaps smarting from and learning from the fiasco of the 2025 budget late last year in 2024. If you can recall, his economic manager scrambled with a few days left before the 2024 budget would have to be reenacted to fix his 2025 budget. The president learning from, or at least trying to learn from, the mistakes that the administration made in the past seems to have been a recurring theme in today's State of the Nation address. Interestingly, he opened his SONA by acknowledging, again, the way that he did also a few months back in an interview on what Malacanang has called BBM blogs, na one, that his administration was not actually addressing the needs of the Filipino people. He also admitted even then and until now na kumbaga either mabagal yung delivery of services. And he also made an interesting admission in the opening of his SONA na economic progress means nothing, or means little rather, if it does not improve the lives of average Filipinos. So in the status report and the long list of promises that he made, just to quickly recap, among them the promise of 40,000 new classrooms under the remaining 3 years of his administration. He also promised to support both learners and teachers, supporting the workforce among them. He also promised to support the agriculture industry, modernize the AFP and the PNP, improve health services in the Philippines, improve transportation, which has been in a very sorry state in the Philippines for a long time. Coincidentally, right in front of me is the Transportation Secretary right there. He also promised and to follow through and be consistent on the faster crime response in the Philippines. He also highlighted the importance of supporting overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs, in the Philippines. So to summarize, parang kumbaga this is Marcos trying to address yung gut issues that affect the average Filipino the most. Again, this seems to be him smarting from the mishaps or the lapses in communication or messaging that he apparently made in the 2025 elections. If you recall, yung 2025 midterms in which only 5, technically 6, but Senator Camille Villar kind of distanced herself from the admin coalition towards the end. Only 5 of the coalition's candidates made it into the Senate in the 2025 midterms. In that midterm election, where Marcos served as their chief campaigner, kumbaga, Marcos focused on issues like sovereignty, holding to account yung alleged corruption from the previous administration, and he tried to draw a contrast between his administration, his Bagong Pilipinas, and the administration of the previous Rodrigo Duterte administration. Now, speaking of Rodrigo Duterte, even as Marcos uttered strong words and had bold promises against or of holding the corrupt and the cruel accountable, Marcos notably made little mention or drew little attention to the biggest threats, if you will, to his administration or his political capital, if you will. No, among them, I think we can note na he did not mention the recent Supreme Court decision which blocked the impeachment of Vice President Sara Duterte, who was once his ally. He's in fact his running mate in the 2022 elections, but is now no longer an ally and is in fact one of the strongest critics of his administration, his person even. He also made no mention of his administration's decision to send former President Rodrigo Duterte to The Hague, where he now faces crimes, or he awaits trial for case charges related to his bloody drug war during his presidency. Also, interestingly enough, we saw or we heard softer rhetoric from President Marcos regarding the West Philippine Sea. In fact, there was no explicit mention of the West Philippine Sea. This is in contrast to the last three State of the Nation addresses where he made very strong statements. In 2022, kung maalala nyo, doon niya sinabi yung not 1 square inch of the territory will be of the Philippines territory will be ceded under my watch. And in fact, it was last year na sinabi niya na hindi guni-guni or hindi katang-isip lamang yung West Philippine Sea. This time, it seems that the president is trying to strike a balance between still standing firm on upholding the Philippine sovereign rights in maritime entitlements, but also emphasizing the importance of diplomacy and being calm, mahinahon in diplomacy, essentially, in trying to navigate these tensions. There was also no mention of prime water, even as he made an explicit reference to reports on yung inefficiencies or deficiencies of the delivery of these services to a lot of Filipinos across the country. So to paraphrase a source that I spoke to right after the SONA, sabi niya, it sounded like the SONA of a man with no enemies. Sa Tagalog pa, SONA ng walang kaaway. So what's interesting here is parang matagal na rin parang President Marcos, especially in the aftermath of the 2025 midterm elections, has been trying to force or initiate a reset of administration, right? After losing, or his coalition losing in the midterms, he admitted, kumbaga, na they weren't addressing the needs of the Filipino. Pagod na daw ang Pilipino sa pamumulitika. And then after that, he made a bold reset, quote-unquote, his words, or Malacanang's words, of asking all his cabinet officials to tender their courtesy resignations. A lot of people expected an overhaul of the cabinet, but in reality, only a handful were replaced in his official family, kumbaga. So at this point, we wonder, is this the bagong Pilipinas that President Marcos wants to present for the remaining 3 years of his term? And more importantly, dahil nga meron siya mga bold promises dito, how and will his administration actually follow through on these promises with 3 years left in his term? For more analysis, recaps, or reports about the State of the Nation address and also the opening of the 20th Congress, visit Rappler.com. You can download the Rappler Communities app. You can talk to me and other reporters there. Other thought leaders are there as well. Share your thoughts about the SONA. What did President Marcos forget to say that I might have missed myself? And what would you hope, or what would you have hoped for him to address during this SONA? Leave your thoughts there. We'll see you there, and keep it on Rappler. Again, this has been Bea Cupin. You have been watching Rappler, covering the State of the Nation address of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Thank you for watching.